up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Shady here, and today yet again we are going to be talking about Tyler Perry. Not too long ago I had spoken both about him and his Medea character and also his recent release that we're probably going to talk about a little bit in this video as well, but Divorce in the Black. I did a review on that as well. I will probably try to link one of those videos in the corner here for you guys to see, but if you would like to see the other one, it's going to be over on my channel. So since the release of that newest film Divorce in the Black over on Prime, a lot has transpired. There was a lot of pushback for the film and a lot of people were not having it. They had their opinions about it, and rightfully so, because I'm going to be sharing some similar ones in this video, okay? But I also saw that it was announced recently that this film had actually driven more signups to Prime Video in the US than any Amazon MGM Studios produced movie to date. But something tells me that might have gone to his head, and I'm going to get into why I feel that way. Now, even though people have been signing up to see this movie, it doesn't make it a good movie, okay? I want to stress that. Just because people went to sign up doesn't mean it was a good film. It seems as though they were just coming to see how bad it was and make fun of it. Like, that's the reason why people were signing up, is because they wanted to see what everybody else was talking about and why everybody else thought this film was so bad. A lot of them would come over, watch it, and agree and say, yeah, the film was horrible. It was bad, okay? So the signups don't really mean anything. Even though that's great, that's just the initial sign up. In terms of them actually sticking with the subscription, that's another thing entirely. I just think that that's interesting that they even mentioned it, because it's like, okay, great, but what does that mean long term? They're probably not going to continue to pay every single month, let's be real. That was just to see the movie and that was it. When you take a look at all the videos here on YouTube and it literally has a 0% ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, I think that could pretty much tell you all that you need to know about this film. Also, if you watch it yourself, there's a good chance, probably 75 to 80% chance, that you probably agree that this movie was bad. Later on, he would appear on Keke Palmer's podcast called Baby This Is Keke Palmer, where he seemed to definitely have a chip on his shoulder, okay? Like, he came on with a mission to say what he wanted and get something off his chest. How he started talking. He started talking about the critiques that he'd been getting from people, and he had quite a lot to say. He ends up referring to his critiquers as highbrow Negroes, basically, and that they're looking down their noses at him and others, and that we don't want to hear the stories of the everyday person.
A large portion of my fans who are disenfranchised, who cannot get in the Volvo and go to therapy on the weekend. So you've got this highbrow Negro who is all up in the air with his nose up looking at everything, and then you got people like where I come from and me who are grinders, who really know what it's like, whose mothers and were caregivers for white kids and were maids and housekeepers and all of these beauticians. That don't discount these people and say that their story don't matter. Who are you to be able to say which black story is important or should be told? Get out of here with that bullshit.
But let's be honest here, Tyler. Like, when he says that we don't want to hear the stories of the everyday people, that's not it. It's the fact that you've been telling the same type of story hundreds of times over and over with different characters, hoping that we don't notice. That's the point that we're trying to make here. That's the issue. It's not that you want to share the everyday person's story. It's the fact that you keep sharing the same type of story over and over again to represent these stories, you know? And I also want to say that I find it absolutely bizarre that he refers to people that are critiquing him as highbrow Negroes when he's the billionaire here. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, aren't you a part of that highbrow Negro association? Like, I'm just saying. When it comes to Tyler's stories, it's always a black woman that's stuck in this relationship with a black man that's almost always a darker skinned black man, and then you have a light-skinned black man that swoops in and rescues her, which obviously brings up its own set of problems and stereotypes that we in the black community are trying to get rid of, but it just keeps coming up because Tyler, obviously, who has a control on the black movie market and has had a pretty big hand on it for a while, if you're going to keep making these types of movies, it does perpetuate the same stereotypes over and over again. again, and obviously it brings up that whole topic of colorism. Obviously, it looks bad, right? When you take it from that standpoint, it looks bad. And don't get me wrong, in the beginning, I did like certain stories that he would come out with, but that was in the beginning. That was when he was first starting like his film career. And I didn't really see that issue until I looked at it from the other lens and from a different perspective, where I was like, oh yeah, it is almost always a dark-skinned man that they make the villain, and then the light-skinned person is the savior. It looks very odd when you look at it that way. It's just like, oh wow, I didn't see that until someone pointed it out to me. I was like, yeah, that is something he does a lot. So there are obviously many directors and writers and producers that create the same story over and over again because, you know, obviously if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's their formula and it works. But I think most of them are not billionaires with a 300+ acre production space. Okay, and also the resources to do whatever pretty much you want to do. So I would have to say, if I could ask Tyler Perry one question, how do you have the resources to do something different but still don't even try? Is it the fear of failing? Because I think he did try to produce, at least, don't quote me on it, I think so. I do think he had some hand to play in the production of that film Alex Cross, where he was supposed to play like some type of detective or something like that, but that didn't do well at all, you know? So I'm wondering if it's like a fear of failure, because he already knows the formula, like I mentioned earlier, that he does over and over again in these movies. He notices that people would still watch him, even though they dislike them, they would still watch them just to make fun of it. But the fact is, you're still watching it and he's still making money. So he feels as though he's won. So that's the part, it's like, it's frustrating because I know people are just watching it to make fun of it and laugh at it because of how bad it is. But at the same time, it's like, we're still watching it. You know, it doesn't really matter if we like it or dislike it, we're still watching the movie. So there were also some suggestions online that I saw that this could just be the visual representation of his own repressed feelings from his childhood, maybe some repressed trauma that he hasn't really processed, because he did have some pretty serious daddy issues that I'm not really going to get into in this video, but if you did some research on Tyler, you'd see what I mean. So is it possible that he's still working on a lot emotionally and mentally? Because it seems to continually pop up in these stories. And I asked that because he's the only writer. He claims that he's the only writer, he's the only person that writes his stuff. So I would have to ask, like, is this a representation of what he's still going through and dealing with? So he's obviously still going to have fans to tell him everything that he does is good and feed his ego. They're obviously going to continue to stifle his growth by doing that. But yeah, I think for the rest of us, including myself, it's like, we just want to see something different, man. If you want to make a sci-fi flick, I mean, he was in Star Trek, for crying out loud. Like, how did that not influence him at all? Just try something new, maybe fantasy or something different, you know? Like, instead of the same old boring storyline. I feel like us as Black people, you know, we want to see something outside of just the drug dealers and the abusive relationships. It's like we want to see something different. We want to see a story that's obviously going to capture our attention and it's going to be interesting to watch, keep us on the edge of our seat, like, you know, something actiony maybe. I don't know, like, let's just try something different. Like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In some cases, that's fine. But in others, particularly when it comes to Tyler Perry, because he's such pretty much the face of like Black television. Obviously there's others, but I feel like he did have a stronghold for quite some years. So that's the person that they think of when they think of Black TV, Black film. It's like that's one of the major heavy hitters that people think of when they think of Black TV, Black film. So it's like, okay, let's do something different with that. In knowing that knowledge, what are we going to do with that? But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm sure people are probably going to disagree with me on this one, but I'm sure I'm probably going to have some people that agree as well. But let me know. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.